How's it going, guys? I'm your host Caravan Gaming. Welcome back to another very special DragonFable video, and for today's video we will be doing the long-awaited free-to-play class tier list for 2023, or at least until October 2023. Okay, I don't know if they are going to make any changes in the last 2 months, but if they do, then maybe this tier list might change. Okay, so if you guys want the most updated version of this tier list, please go ahead and check out the Excel sheet. I've added a new section called the free-to-play tier list section in the Excel sheet below, so please do go ahead and check out the original Excel sheet. And I received a lot of feedback from you guys after the very first tier list video that I made earlier this year for all of the classes inside of the game. Thank you all so much for the constructive feedback, and of course the not so constructive feedback, we'll just take that with a grain of salt. Okay, I know a lot of you guys have been asking me to go ahead and do timestamps. I'm very sorry that I do not have time to go ahead and timestamp the original video, but I finally got off my lazy ass and went to timestamp the video. So by the time this video is out, if you go back and look at the original video, I know a lot of you guys were asking for it. Go ahead and check it out. It should be timestamped already, okay? And I'll go ahead and timestamp this video as well. Alright, I listened to all of your suggestions, so not to worry, you guys are being heard. That being said, this tier list is going to be opinionated, so keep in mind that whatever I say here, these are purely my opinions. You can feel free to agree or disagree with me. The tier list will also have a more comprehensive breakdown on why each class belongs in each tier. So if you see this tier list right now as it is on this video, you may or may not understand why it's in a certain tier, but I'll go the comprehensiveness of the Excel tier list by breaking down each section and what each class is good for. That should be better in helping you guys decide which class you want to use for which particular situation. Every class is going to have a different use case, so a class that may be good for questing might not be good for bossing, and vice versa, something like that. Okay, so without further ado, let us go ahead and get started with the tier list. Alright, so all of this I am basing off the classes against the only available free-to-play classes, and of course only the free-to-play skills available for some of the classes. So we will take it that the other stronger classes do not exist for the purposes of this tier list, because it is free-to-play after all. And I know nowadays you can technically get DC classes by farming 3 DCs every day. All you need to do is farm like 600 days, something like that, and you get a DC class for free. You can technically do that as well, so nothing is really pay to win if you except for maybe DeathKnight if you want to term it like that. But for the purposes of this video, we will not be including any DC classes as well. Okay, so let us go ahead and get started. Very first up, we have the Pirate and Ninja Monkey. Needless to say, they are bad for everything, so they are going to be in the F tier. Next up, we have Technomancer. So Technomancer, from a free-to-play perspective, is actually not as good as compared to pay-to-win when you look at some of the other classes. So for short questing, I gave it an A-, okay, because free-to-play Technomancers, you only have access to, you don't have access to the mana heal skill, which is a big part of how Technomancer is going to function. You are still able to regen mana on your attack, which is nice, but that being said, you also don't have a super strong burst starting off. Only when you get later on in the quest, when your mana starts to go down, then do you have a stronger first turn burst. But for short questing, I gave it A-, and for long questing, I gave it B+, because it will eventually run into mana issues for long questing. Even if you can regain 15 mana on attack now, but it is still not enough, considering Technomancer is really a huge mana guzzling class. Alright, for Warring, I'm going to give it C+, because you don't have that huge first turn burst. And for bossing, I'm going to give it S-. Even as a free-to-play class, you have access to most of the useful skills. You have access to the nukes, the multi-hit skill, which has a bunch of bonus built in. You have access to the buff, you have access to the shield, you also have access to the HP heal, which gives it a pretty fantastic toolkit for bossing. So S- for bossing. All in all, I am going to rank Technomancer as a very high A+, probably the top A+ class for free-to-plays. Alright, next up, we have Evolved PumpkinLord. Now, this is a seasonal class, and I want to point this out. Seasonal class all get a seasonal moderation score reduction of 3 if you guys go ahead and check out the Excel tier list. This is because for free-to-play players, you will not be able to access these classes all year round. So I did give them a little score reduction to compensate for that. But if you're planning on using these classes when they are around, they are more often than not very, very good. Okay, so Evolved PumpkinLord is probably the best free-to-play class in my opinion. So first up, short questing S-. You have huge nukes, okay, for first turn. You also have a HP heal and an MP heal, and you get an even larger HP and MP heal if you bother to farm up the candy. If you don't bother farming up the candy, you still have a great first turn heal. And then for long questing, it is getting an S+ because of all the heals. Warring is getting an A+ because, again, the first turn nukes are pretty nuts with this. And bossing gets an S-. Okay, you have a 3 to 5 turn stun. I know most bosses nowadays are immune to stun, but even when you take that out of the equation, it's still very good without the stun. The shield is a little bit lacking at only 140. Most modern bosses will be able to hit through that, but you know, it's still better than nothing. On top of that, you also get a dodge skill for bosses that have death proof, and you also get a very powerful reflect shield. Now, reflect shield is probably the most useful part of this class in my opinion for bossing. A lot of the early in bosses were only doable because of this class's reflect shield. Okay, so this can technically make it the highest damaging class out of all of the other classes for the free-to-play tier list, simply because of the reflect shield. Assuming you can survive the hit, you can use the reflect shield to deal a ton of damage back to the enemy, and I think this is fantastic. On top of all of that, you also have a very strong you also have a skill which has a like a 1/3 chance of insta killing your enemy if your enemy is below a certain amount of HP, something like that, or just doing a fat nuke. Okay, so that itself is very, very good. So this one, the top tier free to play class in my opinion, S+ tier. Okay, and this is also the only S+ tier for free to play. Okay, even after the moderation, this class still scores extremely high for everything across the board. Next up, Frost Moglin. Now, this was one of the most contentious class rankings that I had for the original video, and I think it's probably still going to be contentious as well for this one. But for free-to-play players, Frost Moglin is even better. And why do I say that? It's because you have, and the main reason why this class, Evolved PumpkinLord and Frost Moglin, the other seasonal classes are so high on the list is because you have access to all 14 skills. As opposed to most of the storybook classes, you only have access to half of the skills, which is 7 of the skills. So that gives the seasonal classes a lot more versatility in your toolkit. Okay, so for short questing, you have A+, Fruitcake Break, very, very fast, skill animation, and of course auto hit. You also have a healing skill. Okay, long questing also gets an A+, similar ranking. Warring gets an A+ because you can use Fruitcake Break, and bossing gets an A-. You do have a bunch of stuff in your toolkit, but it is, I would say, not as good as some of the other storybook classes for bossing. And overall, this class gets an S- from me. Okay, so pretty good class, but unfortunately only available during the month of December. Okay, next up we have Shadow Hunter. Shadow Hunter, I did not put any seasonal moderation score for this, is because once you train it up, you don't need to wait until Moglin comes around to use it anymore. So it's literally the very first Moglin, you just train this class up fully and then you're done with it. You can use it any time of the year. So I don't really classify this as a seasonal class. Some people would, but I personally don't, and I didn't deduct any points for the seasonal aspect of this class. Not that this class has many points to deduct to begin with, so yeah. Shadow Hunter. Unfortunately, first turn you don't have anything good, so it's a D for short questing. C+ for long questing because you do have a heal, but it is locked behind some lengthy combo. Alright, for Warring, this is obviously a D as well, no burst. And then for bossing, I actually gave this a B-. I was contemplating if I should give this a lower score. I don't really know because yeah, you have to plan quite a few steps ahead or in order to get the combo to work, and you know, a lot of your better skills are locked behind combos, which makes this kind of complicated and not very easy to use. So for that reason, I give it B-. It still does have like the full toolkit of all the classes, since no skills are locked behind DA and none of the combos are locked behind DA. But because they are locked behind lengthy combos, I just couldn't place this any higher. Maybe this should be lower. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, overall, Shadow Hunter gets a C from me. Next up, Snugglebear, completely useless class, so all the way right into F tier. And then next up we have Togslayer. Togslayer is another seasonal class, okay. It is S- for short questing. It has some very high damaging skills, which I absolutely love. Okay, the highest damaging one is lock to fire, but the second one isn't, so that's also good. Long questing gets a B plus simply because you do not have heals of any sort and the shield is kind of weak. Okay, for warring you get a B minus. You do have a strong first turn nuke, but it is locked to fire, and the one that's not locked to fire is also quite strong, but both of them have a slightly longer animation cooldown. Not fast enough for it to be like A ranking. Okay, bossing gets B minus. Okay, I think this is okay-ish for bossing, especially for the early in bosses or for any storybook bosses, because of how high of a burst it has. Even though it lacks defensive skills, this class can output a lot of damage. So if you're able to kill the boss before the boss can kill you, then yeah, this is actually pretty decent. Overall, I give it A plus, but this is like scraping the bottom of the barrel for the A plus tier list. Okay, Angler, this is of course F. ChickenCow. Okay, so ChickenCow, B plus for short questing. The only usable skill inside of this class is of course the 12 hit spam attack. That is like 240% damage. Okay, the animation is a little long, but you can kill quite a bunch of the weaker mobs with this skill alone, and you can keep spamming it because there's no cooldown. So you get it's also pretty cheap for mana, so I give it B plus for short questing. Long questing, I'm giving it B minus because the animation is a little long and you're also lacking any form of heals. Not that you really need MP heals, but it's lacking a HP heal. Warring gets a D because the animation is just way too long. And then for bossing gets a C plus because apart from spamming that, you can't really do anything else. And for free-to-play players, you can't use slotted specials. You have to equip the weapon in order to use the special. So yeah, C plus for bossing. It's not the worst, but it's also not the best either. So all in all, this class actually gets B plus. Damn, I am surprised. But okay, next up, we have Warrior. Okay, the base classes are actually not bad if you compare to the other free-to-play classes that we have access to. For Warrior, short questing is B plus. Long questing is B minus. Is because your final skill. Okay, your final skill, it is not very expensive and it does quite a lot of damage. The animation is also rather fast. That's why it gets B plus. Okay, it also has access to all of the skills. So you have your shields, you have dot, you have damage reduction, you have your power skill, and all that kind of jazz. Okay, long questing gets B minus because there's no heals. Warring gets C plus because I do not think it is fast enough and I do not think it's enough damage for it to go higher on the tier for warring. Okay, bossing gets B minus. Okay, it's not the worst class for bossing for free-to-play players, but it definitely is far from the best either. So overall, this class actually gets A minus. Okay. The Mage is actually the same for everything as well. B plus for short questing, B minus for long questing, C plus for warring, and B minus for bossing, for an overall equal score as a warrior, A minus. Okay, everything is exactly the same in my opinion for these two in terms of rankings. If you guys disagree, do let me know down in the comment section below. For Rogue, I actually placed Rogue a little bit higher than both of these classes. Okay, it's still an A minus tier overall, but Rogue B plus for short questing, B minus for long questing, that's the same. C plus for warring, that's also the same. But for bossing, I gave Rogue a B plus instead of a B minus that I gave the other two base classes because Rogue has more defensive skills, and defensive skills are very useful for bossing. Okay, the shields and all, and the blind, and then you also have, in fact, you technically have two shields, though the second shield is a little bit weaker. But yeah, all of that, I think this gives Rogue a slightly, very slightly better toolkit as opposed to these two for bossing. It's almost negligible in my opinion, but for story bosses, I think you can tell the difference. For in bosses, they are probably the same, but for story bosses, I think Rogue would be slightly better. Okay, next up we have DeathKnight. Okay, DeathKnight, A plus for short questing because its nuke skill is on the left. You have a nuke skill on the left side. Long questing also gets A minus because you have the ability to heal. You don't have an MP heal, which is a bit unfortunate, but I don't really think you need it much. Warring gets a B minus. The nuking skill is pretty fast, and it also does a good amount of damage, so I'm going to give it B minus for warring. For bossing, this gets an A minus. The fact that you can swap between a dot as well as a HP heal makes it very useful, and you can also swap between, boosting your damage or, dealing less damage and healing yourself. Unfortunately, it can't go higher than that because it's quite reliant on the relics for it to be good. Okay, if you're using it without the full set, you might not be using this class at its full power. So because of the limitation, I cannot go higher for this. So all in all, I think DeathKnight is an S minus class. Okay. Next we have Necromancer. Necromancer B plus for short questing. Your raised minion, you can sometimes get something very good out of it, but it is random, so I can only give it B plus. You do have a HP heal and life tap as well as a MP heal, or for free or for non-DA players. So I think that's pretty good, and I gave it A minus for long questing. Warring is D. You don't really have any fast nuking skills. Okay, and bossing gets A minus. Okay, you have quite a lot of sustain with this, but it did not get higher is because the shield is only for BPD and not for MPM. So against bosses that have crit, you're going to suffer a lot. But because of its sustain and its dots and all that kind of jazz, I do think Necromancer is still pretty decent for bossing. Okay, so overall it gets an A plus from me. Okay, so here. Alright, next we have Ninja. So Ninja, short questing C plus. Unfortunately, you don't have any burst skills for that. Long questing gets B plus because of all the shields that you have, means that you are able to sustain very long with the Ninja class. And you guys checked out this week's video, excuse me, of how I managed to clear the super long maze in book 3. Okay, not exactly super long, but very tedious quest in book 3. Ninja actually does decently well for sustain because of all the shields and blinds they have, means that you're taking almost no damage. Okay, and you do and you are able to regen 15 MP with the regular attack, which isn't a lot, but again, most of Ninja skills usually aren't very expensive either. So overall, even for a free-to-play class, even having only access to the left-hand side of the skills, you still have a very good toolkit. Okay, you have 2 shields, and then of course you have your burst venoms as well, which deals a ton of damage. So B plus for long questing because of the survivability. Warring gets a D because no burst, and then for bossing it gets an S minus. All in all, I think it gets A minus tier for Ninja. Okay, after tallying up the scores. Alright, next up we have Paladin. Paladin in desperate need for a rework. I don't know if they'll rework it by the end of the year. They might. So this might change drastically. Short questing gets C plus. You don't really have any good bursts, and some of your skills are locked to light, which is a bit unfortunate. It does have slightly higher than normal damage for some of the skills, so it gets C plus. Long questing gets B minus, okay, because of the sustain. Warring gets a D, again no burst, and bossing gets B minus. You have a lot of sustain, but for most of the modern bosses, sustain isn't enough. You usually need damage to overcome their healing or something like that. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck there for hours. So all in all, Paladin gets B plus from me. Next up, we have Pirate. Okay, so Pirate, let me see, where in the world is my, wait, no, did I go through Pirate already? Not yet, right? Yeah, okay, Pirate, okay, you actually have a little bit of burst. On the very first turn, you get 2 double shots, and on top of that, you also can use your Fury attack, which deals quite a bit of damage. So A minus for short questing. For long questing, I'm giving A minus as well because you have a HP heal in your, I forgot what that skill is called. Yeah, you have a HP heal as well, and then you can attack to regenerate 15 MP. Warring gets a C plus. The skill takes quite long to activate, and on top of but it does deal okayish damage, so you get C plus for Warring. It's definitely not ideal, but you know, it's not a complete D. And for bossing, this gets S minus as well. A lot of defensive capabilities and the ability to counter attack whenever you dodge to boost your damage. I think that makes it very, very powerful. So overall, Pirate is an S minus class from me. Okay, so S minus over here. Next up, we have Ranger. Okay, so Ranger, unfortunately, has fallen behind quite a bit, and non-DA players are really getting the shorter end of the stick for Ranger class. For short questing, he's getting a B minus. You are really lacking any form of burst. Your Sky Assault gives you like 180% at most to one enemy. That's probably the best you can do, but is it enough? In my opinion, I think it's not really enough. You don't have any shields, you don't have any heals. So long questing, you get C plus. Warring is a D, and bossing gets a B plus. You do have quite high damage output for Ranger, but unfortunately, as a non-DA, you simply do not have any defenses with this class, which makes it suck a lot. Like all the defensive skills, the heal, the shield is all on the right hand side. So yeah, you really have to make use of Ranger to kill the enemy before they can kill you. So it only gets a B plus from me for free to play players. Alright, and last but not least, we have SoulWeaver. Okay, SoulWeaver or Baltael SoulWeaver, there's not much difference for non-DA players. You can use Baltael if you want a little bit more damage, and you can use the regular SoulWeaver if you need more defenses by, equipping your some sort of helm that gives you resistance instead. So for short questing, you get C+, it doesn't have any good burst skills. Long questing also gets a C+, D for warring, and C+ for bossing. Okay, it doesn't really have most of the good skills for bossing, which is a bit unfortunate, and your best skill of the class, which is the nuke, is unfortunately on the right side, so non-DA players will not be able to use it. The left side skills, you're pretty limited in what you have. You only have a shield, a few damage skills, and like a boost reduction skill, which really doesn't do a lot. So overall, I'm giving SoulWeaver like a C+ for bossing. Maybe it could be a B-. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. But this is the only B- class for this tier list. And that is it, guys. The DragonFable free-to-play class tier list for October 2023. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you guys agree with this list? Do you guys disagree with this list? And please do go ahead, check out the Excel sheet for the most latest version and a full breakdown of why each class belongs in the tier that they are. And if you guys disagree, let me know down in the comment section below as well, or you can head over to my Discord and chat me up. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on why you think this is good and why you think this is bad. Alright, and I hope this video has helped you guys find out which is the best class for you. Of course, please do use the Excel sheet. This is an overall ranking. It does not mean that, one class, just because a class is higher on the overall list means it's better for everything. No, some classes are better at some cases and some classes are better at other cases. So check out the Excel sheet. And that's all I have to say. If you guys found this video helpful, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And of course, subscribe to this channel if you guys would like to see more of such future content. Till the next time, I'm your host, Korban Gaming. Peace out.